Michelle was 52 and at the peak of her marketing career when she started forgetting client names during presentations. At first, she blamed stress and long hours, but when she couldn't remember her own password that she'd used for years, panic set in. Her doctor said it was just menopause brain fog. It took 18 months and 3 different specialists before someone mentioned early-onset Alzheimer's, a diagnosis that would shatter everything Michelle thought she knew about dementia. If you're experiencing memory problems in your 40s or 50s that everyone's dismissing as stress or hormones, stay with me. Today, I'm sharing what Michelle wished she'd known about early-onset Alzheimer's, the type that strikes when you're supposed to be in your prime. Michelle's world stopped when the neurologist said early-onset Alzheimer's disease. At 52, she thought dementia was something that happened to people in their 80s. She had teenage children, a mortgage, and 20 more years until retirement. How could she have an old person's disease? Early-onset Alzheimer's affects people between ages 30 and 65, with most diagnosed in their 50s and early 60s. While it represents only 5 to 10% of all Alzheimer's cases, it devastates families in unique ways because it strikes during peak life responsibilities. Unlike frontotemporal dementia, which I covered in a previous video, early-onset Alzheimer's follows the same memory-first pattern as typical Alzheimer's disease. The difference isn't what happens to the brain, it's when it happens and how aggressively it progresses. Michelle's case was particularly heartbreaking because her memory problems started subtly at work. She'd forget client preferences she'd known for years, lose track of project deadlines, and struggle to follow complex presentations. At home, she started forgetting family plans, repeating conversations, and losing personal items constantly. The career impact is devastating because people with early-onset Alzheimer's are typically in leadership positions with complex responsibilities. Michelle managed a team of 12 people and multiple high-stakes campaigns. Her cognitive decline didn't just affect her, it impacted her entire team's productivity and client relationships. What makes this particularly cruel is the timing. Michelle's children were 16 and 19, facing college expenses and needing parental guidance. Her husband was juggling his own career demands while watching his wife disappear mentally. The family went from planning for retirement to planning for long-term care in the span of 2 years. The progression tends to be faster and more aggressive in younger people, possibly because their brains have fewer compensatory mechanisms developed over decades. Michelle's decline accelerated quickly once symptoms became obvious, requiring major life adjustments within months of diagnosis. Michelle spent months researching Alzheimer's disease online, but most information focused on people over 70. She couldn't find resources that addressed her specific situation as a working mother dealing with dementia in her 50s. The progression timeline differs significantly between early onset and typical Alzheimer's. While late onset Alzheimer's might develop slowly over 8 to 12 years, early onset often progresses more rapidly, with noticeable decline occurring within 3 to 6 years of first symptoms. Michelle's family learned this harsh reality as her condition advanced faster than anyone expected. Genetics play a much larger role in early onset cases. About 60% have familial Alzheimer's disease caused by inherited genetic mutations, compared to less than 5% of late onset cases. Michelle discovered her mother's early dementia, which the family had attributed to stress, was likely early-onset Alzheimer's that went undiagnosed. There are 3 specific genetic mutations that cause familial early-onset Alzheimer's. Mutations in the APP, PSEN1, and PSEN2 genes. If you inherit one of these mutations, you will develop Alzheimer's disease, typically in your 40s or 50s. This isn't about increased risk, it's about certainty. The symptoms are essentially identical to late-onset Alzheimer's: memory loss, difficulty planning and solving problems, confusion about time and place, trouble with language, and changes in mood and personality. The difference is the age of onset and speed of progression. Michelle's neurologist explained that younger brains might actually show symptoms later in the disease process because they have better compensatory abilities initially. By the time work performance becomes obviously impaired, significant brain damage has already occurred. The social isolation is profound because most support groups and resources are designed for families dealing with elderly parents, not middle-aged spouses or young adult children watching a parent disappear during what should be stable, productive years. Looking back, Michelle realizes the warning signs appeared gradually over 2 years before her diagnosis. The challenge was that early symptoms looked exactly like the normal stresses of a demanding career and busy family life. The first sign was difficulty multitasking at work. Michelle had always juggled multiple projects effortlessly, but suddenly felt overwhelmed by her normal workload. She started missing deadlines, forgetting important details in client meetings, and struggling to prioritize tasks that had once been automatic. Memory problems began with recent events, while long-term memory remained sharp. Michelle could recall details from campaigns she'd run 15 years ago, but couldn't remember conversations from the previous day. She started relying heavily on notes and calendar reminders for things she'd never needed to write down before. Language changes were subtle but persistent. Michelle noticed she was searching for words more often, especially during presentations. She'd pause mid-sentence, knowing what she wanted to say, but unable to find the right word. Colleagues attributed this to fatigue or stress. Before we continue with the remaining warning signs, if this information is helping you recognize concerning patterns in yourself or someone you love, please hit that subscribe button. Michelle wishes she'd had access to this information earlier in her journey, and your support helps other families find these crucial resources. Executive function problems showed up as difficulty planning and organizing. Michelle struggled to break down complex projects into manageable steps, something that had been her strength throughout her career. She'd start tasks but lose track of the sequence needed to complete them efficiently. Social withdrawal happened gradually as Michelle became embarrassed by her memory lapses. She stopped volunteering for high-profile presentations, declined social invitations, and avoided situations where her cognitive struggles might be obvious. Her confidence eroded as work became increasingly challenging. The most telling sign was Michelle's awareness of her declining abilities. Unlike some forms of dementia where insight is lost early, people with early-onset Alzheimer's often maintain awareness of their cognitive changes, creating anxiety and depression as they watch their capabilities disappear. Mood changes included increased irritability, anxiety about work performance, and depression about her uncertain future. Michelle became tearful over minor frustrations and worried constantly about making mistakes that would expose her declining abilities to colleagues and family. Michelle's diagnostic journey illustrates why early-onset Alzheimer's gets missed so consistently by healthcare providers. The primary barrier is age bias. Doctors simply don't expect dementia in someone who's 52 and professionally successful. Her primary care physician attributed Michelle's memory concerns to perimenopause, stress, and work burnout. When Michelle insisted something was seriously wrong, she was referred to a psychiatrist who focused on treating her anxiety and depression without investigating underlying cognitive causes. The second specialist, a neurologist, performed basic cognitive testing that Michelle passed easily. These standard screens are designed to detect moderate to severe cognitive impairment, not the subtle executive function and memory problems that characterize early dementia stages. Michelle could still remember 3 words and draw a clock, so she passed her evaluation. It wasn't until Michelle saw a neuropsychologist for comprehensive testing that her cognitive deficits became apparent. This detailed evaluation revealed significant problems with working memory, processing speed, and executive function that basic bedside tests had completely missed. The medical system's focus on ruling out other conditions delayed proper diagnosis. Michelle underwent extensive testing for thyroid problems, vitamin deficiencies, sleep disorders, and hormonal imbalances. While these conditions can cause memory problems, the emphasis on treatable causes delayed consideration of neurodegenerative disease. Insurance barriers also contributed to diagnostic delays. Comprehensive neuropsychological testing is expensive and not always covered for younger patients without obvious cognitive impairment. Michelle had to fight for authorization and pay significant out-of-pocket costs for proper evaluation. Healthcare providers often lack familiarity with early-onset Alzheimer's presentation. Most dementia training focuses on elderly patients, leaving doctors unprepared to recognize the condition in working-age adults who present with subtle cognitive changes rather than obvious impairment. Based on Michelle's experience and what I've learned from other families dealing with early-onset Alzheimer's, here are the essential steps that can make a crucial difference in your journey. First, understand the genetic implications and consider counseling before testing. If you have a family history of early dementia, genetic counseling can help you understand your risks and make informed decisions about testing. Michelle chose testing after her diagnosis to help her children understand their risk and make reproductive decisions. Second, ask specific questions if you're experiencing cognitive concerns in midlife. Don't let doctors dismiss memory problems as normal stress. Ask for comprehensive neuropsychological testing, not just basic cognitive screens. Request evaluation by specialists familiar with early-onset Alzheimer's. Third, address financial and legal planning immediately upon diagnosis. Unlike late-onset Alzheimer's, early onset strikes during peak earning years with significant financial obligations. Michelle and her husband had to restructure their entire financial future, including disability planning, long-term care insurance, and college funding strategies. Fourth, connect with age-appropriate support resources. Most Alzheimer's support groups focus on elderly patients and their adult children. Michelle found the most help through early-onset Alzheimer's specific organizations that understood the unique challenges of young families dealing with this diagnosis. Fifth, consider clinical trial participation. Research into early-onset Alzheimer's is active, and younger patients often qualify for trials that aren't available to older participants. Michelle enrolled in a study investigating potential treatments, giving her hope while contributing to research. Michelle also learned the importance of workplace advocacy. The Americans with Disabilities Act provides protections for employees with Alzheimer's disease, including reasonable accommodations during early stages. Michelle was able to transition to modified responsibilities before full disability became necessary. Finally, focus on family communication and planning. Michelle's children needed honest information about her condition, genetic counseling about their own risks, and support processing their fears about their mother's future and their own. Family therapy helped everyone navigate this devastating diagnosis. The key message Michelle wants other families to understand is that early-onset Alzheimer's, while devastating, doesn't mean your life immediately ends. With proper planning, support, and medical care, families can maintain quality of life and meaningful connections even as the disease progresses. Michelle continues living with early-onset Alzheimer's 3 years after her diagnosis. She's no longer working, but she's found purpose in advocacy and research participation. Her family has adapted to their new reality, while maintaining hope for future treatments that might slow progression. I've put together additional early-onset Alzheimer's resources in the description below, including genetic counseling information and questions to ask healthcare providers if you are experiencing concerning cognitive changes in midlife. What resonates most with your experience? Are you noticing memory or cognitive changes that others are dismissing as stress or normal aging? Do you have family history that concerns you? Share your story in the comments. Your experience helps other families recognize what they might be facing. Remember, if you're experiencing cognitive changes in your 40s or 50s, Don't let anyone dismiss your concerns as normal aging. Trust your instincts and advocate for proper evaluation. Early diagnosis opens doors to treatment options and planning opportunities that can make a significant difference for your family. If this video helped you understand early onset Alzheimer's or gave you information to advocate for proper evaluation, please subscribe for more dementia content that addresses the full spectrum of these conditions. For more information about other types of early dementia, watch this video about frontotemporal dementia. And if you want to learn about protecting your brain health, this video covers prevention strategies that work. I'll see you there.